Welcome, everyone. How's it going? Hope you're all doing well this week. I appreciate you checking out this video. If you're new to the pod, new to the audio journal, video journal series, Candle of Knowledge, how's it going? My name is Jarvis Smith, and Candle of Knowledge Redux is our video series here. And Candle of Knowledge is just about the life and lessons and the legacy of my parents in the wake of the deaths and the lessons they taught me along the way and how I'm using them to guide my life, the future generation, like my nephew, and so on and so forth. And I really do appreciate you rocking with me. If this is the first time you're checking out a video of mine, whether it be in the present time, in the future time, or at any point in the timeline, I appreciate it so much. You know what? With that being said, with this intro, I know this is kind of like, the series, it feels like always feel like an anthology, right? There's really no starting point of this. If you watch every single video back to back, that's really cool. That's awesome. But you don't have to kind of get the gist of what I'm talking about. Each one is its own individual topic. But there is some type of connecting thread through each one, which is a lesson that my parent taught me or some type of reflection that brings me back to my childhood or something like that, right? But also too, man, there's a whole entire story behind the name of this podcast, of this series, Candle of Knowledge. How did I get to Candle of Knowledge? That name, where did that even come from? And if you've been following me for the audio series, for the people who have been following me from there, I definitely provided insight to that. But I wanted to redo it again and bring it to this series right here. So today's episode is going to be a little bit longer because we're going to go through this history right now. And I really just want to talk about the very beginning of when the concept of candle knowledge came to me was when I was in high school, my senior year in high school in 2026. There was a teacher by the name of Christopher Wendelin. He was teaching this class. This was a new class called Popular Literature, Pop Lit for short. And it was like one of those senior elective classes because in your senior and when I was a senior, you get to pick all these different more unique classes because you get ready to graduate, so they kind of open up the door for your interest into different things. And one of these was a different type of writing class. It was billed as like a creative writing class or whatever. And but there was still something different to it. And my homie Q, he was in there. And he was telling me, man, you got to take this pop lit class, man. It's super dope, man. This class is really dope, man. We just be reading books, talking shit, all this other stuff like that. Cute, keeps it funky. And we just be having a good time. And it was also the last class of the day. In my senior year, that seventh period class. So after this, you kind of go home and do your thing or whatever. So I was like, okay, all right, cool. I'll check it out. I remember there was only one slot left. So I had to go to my counselor to go speak to them. I was like, man, I want to go change my schedule. Can I get into this class? And they're like, okay, there's only one slot left, but once you pick this class, you can't change it. I forgot what I had before that class, but they were like, once you change, you can't change again. Okay. I was like, cool. So I got the last slot. I get in there. I get to have my first class with my boy Q. This is something that was special too, because me and Q, we've been knowing each other since, the year 2000, what I'm saying, at this time for 6 years from junior high to high school. And now we're in our senior year together and we finally get to have a class together. So that was super dope to have my boy with me there. But then also there were some other people in there that I was getting to know that I met before that I never had a class with before. So it was kind of cool, man. And, I went through that entire journey, right, of being in this class. But the cool thing about this class was that also the teacher, Mr. Wendelin, Chris Wendelin, shout out to him. We're definitely going to be getting into him. People who know he's been a fixture, an important figure to this podcast, obviously not just through the name, but through so many other things throughout my personal development. But he was a new teacher at this time. And it was really cool to kind of see him step in because he was new to STAG, which is the name of school that I went to in Palos Hills, Illinois. So he was just experiencing everything. And this was like, he didn't have as many senior student classes, but this was one of the classes that he had in the very beginning of his career because he was teaching a lot of freshmen and sophomores. I guess just paying your dues when you're a new teacher, you kind of, get to teach the younger generation before you get to maybe the older students. So that's what it was for him. And but he brought this whole entire wisdom and knowledge into this, class that was so different. We were dissecting books that I never even thought about reading. Like I think it was something about Einstein's dream or something like that, which is very fitting when I think about some of the different writings that I do now, very surreal and stuff like that. There's some other books that are reading and stuff like that, and just really having these deep dissections. But the cool thing about Chris was Mr. Wendelin, he had this nice dissection where it was leaning to the creative side. It was leaning to more of the expressive side of things. So when we had to do papers, for instance, he would encourage students to get up there and maybe share your ideas stand up and talk to your students and stuff like that. And he would definitely do that. And I'll never forget when I had to do my first homework assignment. It was something about a book they were reading, and I dissected it in a way that was a little bit different that was normal. I put a little bit of creativity in it, but I also put a little bit of myself in there too. I told a little bit of my personal journey about that too, about just maybe my experiences. I'm a person who has a learning disability. So I kind of have through my journeys of having a learning disability and kind of working your way through that and navigating the challenges and being an individual in yourself. And I'll never forget when my mom, when she helped me write the paper, put it together before Chat GPT. Let me make this very clear. Before Chat GPT, we had my mom. Shout out to all the mothers out there, just the parents and mom, dad, whatever. But it was my mom who was kind of helping with the papers sometimes, as far as just the structure, the grammar, and just auto, checking the spell check and all that stuff like that. So before Chat GPT was the assistant, my mom was the assistant there for me, and to help edit and revise and get my words right. You know, but I remember when I wrote that and I wanted to say that, my mom was like, "Are you sure you want to say that? They may look like you crazy. It may look at you like you're crazy." And I was like, "No, I do want to say it. I mean, it's the truth. It's how I'm feeling." So I did it. I went up there and I said it. And then what I got was a response from the class that was different. My peers and my classmates started looking at me differently, but not in a negative way, like, "Oh, wow, that's respect." And then also Mr. Wendelin, he acknowledged that in a way like, "Man, that's so awesome. That's so amazing. I'm so glad you spoke like that," etc. And that encouragement right there was dope because I've never had that from a teacher before. And then throughout, he would introduce more different things to kind of start conversations and get people within the class talking and things of that nature. And that was really a dope experience there. But one of the things that he would do was at a certain point in the class, he introduced this concept called light the candle of knowledge. And essentially, what he would do is turn the lights off, light a candle, and then he would read like a poem or maybe a newspaper article that talked about a certain topic that was a little bit more mature, or some type of like art history piece or something. I think it started when we were doing like a book dissection, but then it just led into something a little bit deeper. And it was so dope because I was like, "Man, this is really cool." But then he had flipped it where he's like, "And if anybody else wants to come up here and share something, you can go ahead and do that." And I'm like, "Whoa, that's pretty cool." And then, some other students came up there. They shared something that they were maybe doing, or maybe something they believed in, a cause or something like that, a belief. And it was really cool. It was always the same concept. Not all the students got up there. Maybe like two other students or something like that got up there outside of Chris. But then I came up there one time because I'm still rapping at this time too, doing my music. And I got my big senior year album. This is the big senior year album. I call it that because it was my last album of my senior year in high school. This is the final album before I graduate, type of thing, because I graduated early, a semester early. So this album, which was called appropriately the Black and White Album, very fitting for our current setting right now. I did that and I released that, and I was selling it to the kids in the school and stuff like that. And I even sold Mr. Wendelin a copy as well because he wanted to support, and he was super down with it. He was like, "Man, that's awesome, dude. Whatever. Like, yeah, let's do it. Like that's amazing." So like as far as like sharing the music, but then he was like, "Man, can I get up there and maybe like say something, like say a verse, recite a verse?" That's what I called it, recite a verse. I try to make it sound like not just say rap, but let me recite a verse. And he was like, "Yeah, that'll be amazing. That'd be awesome. Oh my God, yes, yes, yes." And it was kind of cool because I remember some of the students who knew, not everybody, I'm not gonna make it like seem like everybody knew, but there were some students, like two or three, students that like, "Oh, I heard that you're gonna get up there and you're gonna rap. Oh man, that would be so amazing." And it was so special because Q and I were always sharing our music to our friends up and down the hallway, "Check us out, check us out." But, but we never actually performed at all at that time. Never performed. So now you get this opportunity, this chance to perform to your peers, to your high school classmates in this intimate setting, which is almost like a little lo-fi vibe, cafe lounge type of thing. You know what I mean? So it was kind of cool. I was like, "Okay, cool. I'm about to do this." So I get up there, I do it. The adrenaline's going up high, but I just remember going up there, how Mr. Wendelin gave me that platform with no restrictions to be myself, to be authentic, to be pure. And I was like, "Man, that's super dope." He didn't say, "Okay, can I see your lyrics before you get up there?" No cursing, no swearing. He didn't say any of that. He just said, "Go." And then I went up there. He got the lights down low. He lit the candle. You know what I'm saying? I think he got the brand new candle for me. He got the brand new candle for me. You know what I'm saying? He got the brand new candle, and he lit that joint up. And man, we just went forward, and I just recited my verse from one of the songs from the from that CD that I was selling to my fellow classmates, and the response was strong, man. Because again, this wasn't like TikTok or even YouTube. YouTube was just getting started at that time, early stages of YouTube, when there's a lot of how-to videos on YouTube. This is like '06, early YouTube. So what I'm trying to say is a lot of people weren't putting themselves out there like that. It was very kind of hard to kind of easily see people's stuff and whatever. People were making CDs, like obviously, but like MySpace was a thing. But you know what I'm saying? And having your song on the MySpace profile was a thing. But like, easily sharing your stuff like that wasn't a thing as it is now. I mean, you just hop in front of your camera, start rapping, singing, dancing, whatever, throw it up on Instagram, throw it up on YouTube Shorts, throw it up on TikTok, whatever, and then it goes off. And then everybody, not just in your high school, can see it, but everyone across the globe can see it, no matter what point you are in life. All right, so that was just cool to kind of get that reception. So my peers, my classmates who know me, got a chance to finally see me rap and see me do it live. And, I hit all my beats. My heart was racing, but I hit all my beats. But more than just the adulation and recognition from my peers, it was also from Mr. Wendelin, because he was like, that was special. That was amazing. That was unbelievable. That was just super amazing. I think he wanted to say dope, but, I think he just kept it really professional at that time. And, you know what I mean? Like, but ever since that moment, that was kind of towards the tail end of the semester wrapping up. That's when we just had a whole new respect. And ever since then, it was just this deeper connection with Chris, Mr. Wendelin. And when I started to create this, when I went through, life goes on. Obviously, I graduated from high school. My parents, passed away. My father passed away in 2011 in August. My mother passed away in July 2017. And I just remember when my mom was passing away, that was very symbolic because so many different reasons, but it was the end of the line with me having my parents current in my life. My parents will forever be with me. That doesn't change that I had a mother and father, but they're no longer going to be with me in my journey in life. And I'm getting ready to turn 30 at this time when my mother passed away in 2017. Just, 1 year, just a few months later, I would turn 30 in October. And I wanted to do something to kind of, do more than just, have a usual funeral as we were going through those arrangements. And I just never forget, I was writing down the outline to start a podcast. And the goal was to immortalize their legacies. That was my mindset. I said, I got to just do more than just have something to say at the eulogy of my mother's, funeral here. I need to continue this on, because just because it's the end of them doesn't mean it's the end of us, the story of us. And we're going to continue on that thread. But how do I do that? And I said, okay, I know how to do audio. I know how to do recordings. I've been doing that for years. So I can do like a podcast. This is when podcasts were popping off. Serial and everybody else had a podcast around 2017 at this point. But I said, okay, I can step into this point right here. I can do that. But what would you call it? What will it be about? So it'll be about my parents, their lives, and the lessons they taught me in the wake of the deaths, and how I'm using it in my life moving forward and the whole entire grieving process. Okay, cool. You got the basic concept down. And I remember writing this all out when my mother was in her final moments in hospice too. I was literally outlining everything, just like in my Apple Notes on my MacBook, just outlining the entire thing. Just like, okay, I could talk about this, I could talk about that. And then I was like, what am I going to call this series? What am I going to call this? I don't know what to call this. And I was going through different names, something with memories, something with, the road back home or whatever. But I was like, okay, let me just write down some different, maybe vibes, some themes. This is nostalgic vibes. This is about a certain type of era. This is, somewhat vintage. There's a certain type of, obviously, reminiscing. There's grievance. There's this whole entire healing process. There's just trying to understand, death and that process, and just maturity and growth. And what does that look like? What will my life be like without having to have my parents in my life as I continue to age up? All these different things. These are all the different things I'm feeling in different moods. So what do I call that? And I was like, well, I do remember something. And I was at my hometown making the arrangements with my brother and the rest of my family from my mom's funeral. I said, well, I'm in my hometown. And I said, there is this one thing I remember called Candle of Knowledge. And it was just always this open forum for you to get up there to an audience and express yourself to an audience and share your story with an audience and be your true, authentic self to this audience. And I said, that's what this series needs to be called, Candle of Knowledge. And that's where it all came from. That's where it all began. And ever since then, I started to run with it. I mean, Candle of Knowledge was an idea that Chris brought to us as students. And now, as one of his students here, I just took it and just ran with it and turned it into something completely different, remixed it. And I think that's what art does, right? we kind of pay homage to people who came before us and the experiences they had, and you just take that experience and then you bring it over to your styling, and then you put a flip on it. And so paying tribute to not just the life and lessons that my mother and my father taught me, but paying tribute to the lessons and the game and the knowledge that Mr. Wendelin gave me as well, right? Because what Chris gave me, Mr. Wendelin, was a platform to share my voice. He was the first teacher to really, truthfully, authentically embrace my voice and not stifle it, not try to censor it, not try to control it. No, be you. All right. All right, cool. And that's what I needed for this platform. And here we are now. So I create this series. I go through these different processes with the name. It keeps building. It keeps growing. And I have this journey documented. But then I said, okay, I need to do something. I need to make sure I get the original creator of the series documented on the podcast, on the audio series. And I did that, and I had to interview. So what I'm going to do right now, we're going to transition, and I'm going to play to you the original audio recording right here in the video series of Mr. Wendelin, Chris Wendelin, speaking about his experiences of just entering in, being a teacher, how his teachings led him to connecting with me, how he came up and it was introduced to Candle of Knowledge, and what he has learned throughout his life from our connection and where we all go from here. So with that being said, I proudly introduce to you the audio of Mr. Wendelin, the original creator of Candle of Knowledge.
So I, in college, had a professor named Dr. Paul Gullifer, who was just a really interesting person and teacher, and he had one of those classes that I look forward to each week. And I have to think back. I think it was an advertising class. At the time, I was an advertising major, so I'm not exactly sure which communication class it was that he taught. But I remember who he was as a person and what he brought to class every day and how he taught the material. And not long into class, he introduced this, segment, for lack of a better term, this segment each week called the Candle of Knowledge. And this was just something that he did that I look forward to every week. And it was like an outside thing. Like, he was very funny. And so sometimes he would, I think at the time he had like a teenage daughter. And so he would like, one time I remember he like lit the candle, and then he like, just said in a very like articulate way lyrics from a song that she had been listening to. And it was like, actually it was the Milkshake song. I don't know if like my milkshake brings all the boys to the yard. And so he said that song, just kind of like read it. And it was just like spoken word, just like we were all just laughing so hard at him because we had seen this new side of him. He was normally just kind of our teacher, and then he brought in this candle of knowledge and he lit it, and it was this very like ceremonious thing. We're all like, what is going on? And then he just like, read these like, with the way he said it sounded absurd lyrics, and that was like the start of something. And then so each week, sometimes it would be serious, he'd talk about something going on in the news, but there was always just this outside of our classroom feel as to like him bringing in just something really interesting to think about. And it was all around this candle. He would blow the candle out, and we'd sort of just like, okay, back to chapter 5. Or, it would be a break from the normal class routine to get us into that. And a lot of the things that he did, I remember being funny. But there were those different times when he said, like, let's talk about something more serious. So that obviously I was an advertising major, so I wasn't thinking about my own teaching. I wasn't thinking about, I'm going to use this idea or anything like that. It was just basically, I just really, really enjoyed it. And, as you have teachers throughout, your educational career and stuff, you sort of just like pick up on things that they do. Even just as a young man, I was just kind of interested in the way that he kind of held himself and just how he was a captivating person and things like that. So it was definitely something I feel at that time I added to my repertoire, even though not even knowing it, like just something that I caught on that I was like, if I ever am in front of people, I just really want to have that sort of thing where people are listening to what you say and you're able to like make them laugh and just kind of bring this really cool element to the discussion. So that was the very first, just bringing in this outside, whatever kind of people want to talk about, this outside idea of the candle of knowledge. In college, I was just extremely undecided. Like I went in my freshman year of college as a business major, and my dad was a very successful business person, and I just didn't know what I wanted to do out of high school, and so I thought, you know what, this seems like the path to go down. I'll do it, and that's where I kind of started my college career, was just studying business classes and things like that. And then I do really like art, and I like graphic design, and I like just the creativity in that way. So I sort of drifted from business to advertising, and then that was probably like my sophomore and junior year. And so that was kind of like my on the books major. But then at the same time, like freshman, sophomore year of college, I had taken my like mandatory English classes and had some teachers that just I really, really enjoyed. And I read some stuff that kind of like, shook me. And I was like, oh my, that's like, I love, like, those are my favorite classes. I was studying, getting through the stuff I had to with advertising for my major. But then like the stuff I really look forward to is like, reading novels and talking about them in class and writing about them and things like that. So I had this like parallel kind of path. And, after I got rid of those, or after I finished those like requirements in English, I realized that it was going to start costing money to just keep taking the classes that were not exactly productive towards my major. So I was using, like any elective I had to just pick up extra English classes, any spare room in my schedule to get those, just to be in an English classroom or a literature or writing class with some of those teachers that I started to really connect with. And they were kind of helping me pull strings. Like I needed prerequisites, or I need to be an English major to get in some of these classes. And they were kind of like, I can help you get in there, sign up, or like whatever I needed to do to get around the registration to be in those classes. And so I was kind of doing both at the same time. And I was an English major on the books. I just really loved it. And there comes some times when I was in some of my advertising classes where I just realized I just did not see myself pursuing a career in it. It was just, like I said, the other classes were just more influential to me. I was taking like a philosophy class that I just felt like this is the stuff that I love, and the advertising stuff was interesting, but it wasn't what I really felt passionate about. And so, it was like the end of my junior year, or like entering my senior year. I'm not exactly sure, but I went to my guidance counselor and was kind of like, hey, I guess the guidance counselor is more high school. He was an advisor. It's like, hey, I'm getting close to this, time to graduate here. I think maybe I can have a double major in English, but what should I do? And it was kind of like, well, you've got all these classes. Why aren't you just an English major right now? Why have you been taking all these communication classes if that's not really what you feel yourself doing? It seems really obvious looking back now, but I had this kind of like light bulb moment. I was like, yes, I totally should just shift gears. And unfortunately, it was like late in the college career. But so I ended up just graduating with essentially a double major in English and communications and advertising. And then I was looking into programs that I would be able to get certified as an English teacher to go on and get my master's in teaching and like do my student teaching and get all the credentials and classes I needed to be an education major as well. So from Bradley, I went to UIC. at UIC, I did my student teaching in the Chicago Public Schools. So I had an awesome mentored teacher named Samantha Sims at Martin Luther King College Prep School on the south side of Chicago, and I really loved that experience. I saw myself. I was trying to get on at that high school, and they didn't have any openings. I saw myself after my student teaching, which was like the spring of '06. That was kind of how my student teaching ended. Just looking for a job. I mean, I was in a class of like 60 or 70 English teachers, all in this cohort, I guess is what the formal term was, a cohort, that we were all leaving UIC together looking for jobs. We were all kind of like, okay, we finished, we got our teaching certificates, and we were just out into the market. And like one of our last classes that we were after student teaching, my UIC teacher came up to me and asked if I would volunteer to do a mock interview, like just for the group. She was going to bring in some retired administrators and go through like a mock interview in front of everyone, so that they just to see what an interview would be like, interviewing for a teaching job and stuff like that. And it was the last day of class. It was like a 5 to 8 p.m. seminar on a Thursday night, and usually I brought my dinner and stuff like that. And I was just like, oh gosh, I don't feel like being nervous about this. I don't know if I feel like answering the right questions wrong in front of 50 to 60 people. And she kind of looked at me like, do me a solid here. I'm bringing these administrators in. You're my student. I need you to suck it up and do this mock interview for me. So I was like, okay, all right, I'll do it. All right. So that night, I went in front of the cohort, and we did an interview with one of her friends. There was a retired principal. And so they brought me, they asked me all these questions about just that people would probably get when they're interviewing at a school and stuff. And it ended, and it was kind of fine. I didn't crash and burn. I didn't feel like it, so I felt just okay that I wasn't embarrassed. And maybe like 2 weeks later, I'm finishing up my job at the wellness center, and my phone rings at that office, which is weird because no one ever really called me there. It was like a cell phone or whatever. So the phone rings at my cubicle, and I answer it, and it was Carol Flores. She said, "Hi, this is Carol Flores from Amos Alonzo Stagg High School. Would you be interested in coming in for an interview?" And so I was like, "How did you get this?" I'm sorry, what? I said, "I'm sorry, what was the name of the high school?" And she's like, "Amos Alonzo Stagg High School. We were calling to see if you'd be interested in an interview." And I didn't apply yet anywhere. I was just getting my resume ready. I was getting everything ready to kind of send out. And she called me, and I was like, what is happening? So I'm Googling the school. I'm like, I'm just told. I mean, it was like this phone call that was like my destiny, basically, that I'm like, absolutely. What day would you like me to come in? I'll do. Yes, I'll take the interview. Yes, please. Who am I meeting with and all this stuff? And they're like, well, we'd like you to come in and talk to the principal and a division chair, the English division chair. And whatever, set the date. So then I'm like, I hung up the phone. I start Googling Stagg High School, and I find it looks like amazing, this website. I'm just like so excited. I'm so confused, kind of. And then my mentor teacher sent me an email and asked if anybody had contacted me yet from Stagg. And I was like, yeah, I just got this call. What is going on? And she said, well, the mock interview was a retired administrator from District 230 who still talks to people and was impressed and passed your name on. They had an English opening or a few English openings in the district, and so they wanted to bring you in. And so, never had I been more just happy that I took that opportunity that she gave me to do the mock interview. And I think back about like how I was teetering on, maybe even like not going to class that night or telling her no, or how it goes. Just like, you just want to get through stuff. And the fact that like one thing, that like 20-minute mock interview pretty much like changed the trajectory of my life. That was the beginning of me working at Stagg High School. And that summer they asked if I'd teach summer school, and of course as a new teacher I was like, absolutely, I'll do whatever you want me to do. I just feel I'm so lucky to be here. And they're like, okay, well, we need somebody to teach this brand new class we don't know anything about yet. It's just written, and we want somebody new to do it. It's called Choices in Popular Literature. And it was a class that was replacing what was used to be called individualized reading. And I guess it was just a way for senior students to take a class where they got to read something they wanted to read and kind of end their high school career off with a positive reading experience sort of thing. So it was like a guided class, senior elective, pretty low pressure, way for students to take a class that was focused on reading, but they got some choices. So again, I was not involved in the development of the class, but when I came in, they were kind of like, all right, you're going to have a lot of students that maybe didn't know what they signed up for, or maybe, they're taking a chance on this. They're just taking this opportunity with the new class. We don't really have any guidelines for you. We just want it to be focused on reading and analysis, and we really want these students to be able to choose different books based on themes that you develop, and we want to offer this as like a leisure reading sort of class, basically, with some structure. So that was the beginning of Choices in Popular Literature, and so I was really excited. Like I said, I was really excited to be there, and that class on top of it, I was like, oh man, so what are the lists of things that I have to teach? And they're like, well, we really don't have like a list of books that you have to teach. You can go out. We really focus on skills, so we want, no matter what they read, we want them to be able to, analyze the author's style and understand theme and some of those like basic literary skills, but on the next level, make sure that it's like 12th grade rigor of a class that would allow them to read something a little bit more challenging, and then talk about why it's a popular book, in quotes, popular, kind of like, what is this, a best-selling book? Is this critically acclaimed? Is this an award-winning book? What exactly is this? And then what are the elements of that book? So those are things that they asked me to do. But when I heard that they really didn't have anything in place that I was going to be kind of mandated to teach, so that was very exciting to me, to be able to pull in some of these things that I had always wanted to do as I was learning to be a teacher. It just sort of was like really awesome that I could start my first year with a lot of freedom to teach what I wanted. I met with other teachers around the district that were also teaching, because they offered the class at Sandberg and Andrews. So I remember having meetings with them just about interesting themes like identity and social issues and relationships. Those were like these big themes. And then we designed reading lists based on just doing some research and New York Times bestseller lists and things like that, that students could choose, and then kind of build it around literature circles and reading response questions and things like that, so that students could not only read a book that they choose on a topic or like a kind of book that they want. You can read like a science fiction book about relationships. You can read any sort of genre that you really wanted, and then have good discussions, have sort of like academic, intellectual discussions with classmates about these books and about how themes overlapped and things like that. So I was really just excited about all that as an English teacher, getting into the game. The balance of structure and freedom for students, I felt like, could be something kids really liked. It wasn't right away. This was definitely nothing that I had planned on in the summer going into the class, or even right away. This was not part of my plan to do something like Candle of Knowledge, but I remember that group being really just having a good, like, it sounds corny, but maybe like vibe. Like I feel like conversations were kind of smooth, and other people just kind of opening up. I mean, when you're talking about books and you kind of break down the walls of maybe like expectations, and this isn't my own doing, but just by the nature of kind of a laid back curriculum, I didn't feel the pressure to like make sure that I was drilling all these like writing skills into you. So it's kind of like, all right, let's read a few chapters and like write whatever you kind of feel is interesting to you about it. I had like I said, that wasn't, I'm not giving myself credit on that one. It's just like the fact that I wasn't going to have this big final assessment on your writing and reading skills like normal classes, I think allowed it to be that way. And I think being seniors was really important too. I mean, like toward the end of the day, senior year, everyone's sort of just transitioning, and you're ready to go on to be more independent. You're ready to go into life after high school. You're starting to get bigger than the walls of Stag. You're like seeing the world, and not that you don't do that at a younger age, of course, but like just seniors, like I think senior year when you go in and you're really trying to get people to fit into a box, it never goes really well, because that's the opposite of the way people want to be thinking at that time. You want to be thinking kind of optimistically, just open-minded, and the horizon is in view, and you're kind of just taking it all in. So, and I felt like that was the best thing about that class, was just like everyone sort of shared that interesting mentality about like, okay, we're here and we're doing this, we have to be an English class, but at the same time we're having like, we're sort of like seeing it as maybe like a college sort of atmosphere. Like we don't have a lot of pressure on these assignments. We don't have a ton of grades in the grade book. We're just doing this. And so as I was just kind of thinking about ways to make the most of that time as a group, I went back to the teacher, like just some of the things that I really, really enjoyed about those classes that I had. And two things sort of like synthesized in my mind. My favorite teacher from high school, his name was Gordon Wassel, and he was always just somebody that led just really captivating discussions and really got people to think about their own lives and connected content in a way that was just relevant and thoughtful, and I just really loved that about him. I mean, again, at a time like I talked about Dr. Gullifer earlier at the end of my college career, and Mr. Wassel was somebody who was a mentor throughout my high school career. And he just sort of had a way of posing things in a way that helped you think about what was really important and what you wanted, and just helped you kind of like learn about yourself, And he had like a wisdom about him that I just always just really, really appreciated as a young person, and then as a teacher felt like that's sort of what I want. I would always try to hope to be like. And he had a sign in his wall. Mr. Wassel had a sign on his board that said, "Students are not containers to be filled, but candles to be lit." That was just something I was like, God, that's so true. And so often students are treated like containers to be filled. Like you go, first period, here's a little bit of math. Okay, second period, here's a little bit of science. We're just pouring this into you. And then, at the end of the week, you just got to dump it out on this paper so we can give you a grade. It's very assembly line feel to this idea of like filling a container with knowledge, as opposed to, the idea of lighting a candle. And so that was kind of in the back of my mind. And then, Dr. Gullifer actually like literally lighting this candle, I thought was like, I loved it so much. I was thinking like, I'm going to try this. I'm going to try this in class. This is going to be kind of weird. I'm going to introduce it. I'm going to actually light this candle, and I'm going to see what happens. I had a good feeling about the group being kind of open to it, but at the same time, anytime you go outside of your comfort zone and you're kind of like, oh man, this might just be, like, they might be making fun of me behind my back about this, or there's something about it, and probably the thing that works and the thing that I liked about it so much as a student is its gimmick. Like there's something about it that's like, oh, okay, you're lighting a candle. Like it's just so different, and it's like I But at the same time, that's what kind of makes it work. You got to you got to let down your guard a little bit and be vulnerable. And that's what I did. So I was very nervous that first time about lighting and kind of explaining it. I'm sure it took me like 25 minutes to try and explain what I was getting at here. I think I remember at the beginning of it thinking that I would kind of bring things, and then opening it up to you guys. Or maybe that was just, it took a while for people to kind of volunteer to bring in their own stuff to contribute at the Candle of Knowledge. But also just the name. I mean, the Candle of Knowledge, like looking back, like knowledge is sort of this, yeah, I don't know. It's not pretentious. That's not the right word, but just like this idea of like, we're going to light this candle and, with it will come knowledge. This thing, like if you, like, I don't know, in this one way, I just thought it was like the coolest thing ever but then every once in a while you step back and you're like, wait, is this cool or is this horrible? Like, what is this, So we did it, and I lit the candle, and I wish that I could remember the very first thing that we talked about. I don't know what happened that time. And then it was just a part of the week that I began to look forward to. And every single time that I did it, I was nervous, to be honest with you. Like every time, because I just didn't, I don't know, it was like an open mic sort of night that I had no way of knowing what was going to come of it. And I think the coolest part about it was the same thing, and it did sort of evolve from what like Dr. Gullifer had done in his class, just in the idea that it was this window to the outside world. And I think as seniors, there was this desire again to like talk about things that you didn't normally get to talk about in school, like, or to throw out a conversation starter, or to share something that there was never a place to share in school and showcase something, maybe about yourself or about, I remember certain times students would be like, is anybody else, kind of worried about this? Or does anybody else just think this is crazy? And then a couple hands would go up, and I feel like those are really just interesting times because like I mentioned before, sometimes school doesn't get education right. School is very good at the routine, is very good at the moving when the bell sounds, is very good at these rules, but it's not always great at having like good educational experiences. And I think, again, I do not take credit for this, but when students brought something to the table that was their own, that they wanted to talk about, and other students were able to connect and kind of empathize and go with it, I felt like that was some of the best learning that I got to experience as a teacher. It wasn't like it wasn't the grammar lesson. It was this frustration of something, or this excitement, or this article that they read. It were those sorts of things that I felt like were really just getting it right. And the funny thing is it was no design by a teacher. It was nothing from a teaching textbook. It was simply, let's see what happens when we give students a day of the week to talk about whatever they want to talk about. And then, like, guess what happens? Incredible things happen. And, as a teacher, you have those students that you want to talk more. You have those students that there's so much going on beneath the surface, and that any time that other students are able to hear them speaking is going to be beneficial. And Jarvis was somebody that just that was the case. I always got kind of excited when that hand went up. And so when it was Candle of Knowledge and Jarvis volunteered to rap, I was very, very excited, to say the least. And then, then I was just captivated. Honestly, I saw this talent come out that I'd heard about, but I hadn't got to really experience. And the fact that it was all kind of happening in this class, I was thinking about things in two ways. As a person, I was just really excited and into how you're performing, right? And then as a teacher, I just felt like, oh my, like this is all things coming together. This is this silly idea of a candle of knowledge coming to be something that I would always hope it would be, where a student that I admire and would want to hear their voice is sort of like able to be amplified through this. And then also it's kind of like subliminally thinking, watching this happen, you, Jarvis, not being able to have a chance to rap or like share this, I guess, with the class in this way, a different way, feeling like just like so happy that the stars had kind of aligned and you were brave enough to do it. After the Candle of Knowledge performance, Jarvis and I talked more about music, and I do remember Jarvis gave me one of those CDs to listen to, and I felt like just like the proudest person that I had this this like product, first of all, that I was just like had a way of like continuing listening to Jarvis's stuff, but also just like I felt really honored that Jarvis thought enough of me that he would know that I would enjoy it, that he would know that I would like to be, that I would really appreciate that gift, I guess is what it says. And funny enough, I actually have it right in front of me. I have the black and white album right here, the black and white album, Papa J Final Fight Records and Backroom Productions presents. So I still have this. I still have this CD that Jarvis gave me. Having Jarvis perform at Candle of Knowledge was something that just really, in the moment, again with Jarvis, was something that I just really, really appreciated. It was just one of those moments that I felt like something really good had happened, something really good was happening. But then looking back on a lot of those days in the years following, where kind of wondered if Candle of Knowledge still had a place. I wondered if it was worth continuing. There were some groups that definitely weren't as receptive to that first group to it, and I did go back to that memory and think like, what if there's someone out there in the class that is like sitting on this rap, or is sitting on this poem, or sitting on this thing that they would share in school but they don't have a place. And honestly, that experience kind of helped me realize that even if on the surface people weren't into it, there could be someone out there that was just kind of listening and processing and waiting for that moment, waiting for that venue, that Candle of Knowledge moment to be outside of their comfort zone with an excuse. No one's ever going to raise their hand and say, hey, you know what, I've got this cool thing I want to share, but if it's like, if it's a situation that's presented and the opportunity is there and everyone's sort of prepped and understand that's what it's for, the Candle of Knowledge is there to share those things. I went back to Jarvis's experience of thinking like, I would have hated to not done it that day. There might be a student out there that's waiting for that opportunity to share something. Honestly, I was just incredibly surprised and honored. I think the best way to explain it would be honored. I mean, I think back about that first year, and as a teacher, as a new teacher, I learned more from you than I learned more from you included in that group, but I learned more than I taught. Basically, thinking about that, and something that always stands out about that group is Jarvis. And I, much like in class, when you want someone to speak up and you just really appreciate their take on things, and you feel like they're doing a much better job of teaching the class than you, and like you just want people are listening to them more than they're listening to you, and all those things. Like Jarvis being someone that, again, I admired, and I remember we did have conversations outside of class, and just someone that I really enjoyed talking with, and enjoyed having that experience of like figuring things out. By no means did I have any confidence as a teacher, and so Jarvis was just somebody that when we in that class, to look out and see him paying attention and willing to contribute, and just and then that Candle of Knowledge experience is always something that I remember. Obviously, I still have this CD. It was something that I look back on as an artifact, sort of just that whole time, with the class and the Candle of Knowledge. And to get that email was just one of those times where you felt like this is amazing. Like, I'm so happy we can reconnect. I'm so happy that that you reached out to me, because again, like, Jarvis is somebody that I'm not on Facebook, so I don't have, I'm not very good at like reaching back out and trying to connect to people and things like that. So I just appreciated it so much that he contacted me, and then to hear more about the podcast, it was just like, it was just so much to try and think about the fact that something that we had done together, and then it felt like a distant memory, had been that influential or impactful to him. I had no way of ever understanding that it would have had like a long lasting impression. And then I like just felt so horrible about Jarvis's parents, and just kind of like hearing more about that story, and getting that reconnection just meant so much. And then like kind of hearing the larger idea of the project was just so inspirational in how he's taking this idea and going to the next level with just sharing this concept. That's something I believe in, and I'm actually going to take this to and contact Dr. Gullifer and sort of explain this whole long story to him, because I really haven't talked to him since 2003. So I'm kind of gonna do something similar and say, this had a really strong impact on me as a teacher, and then I've been doing it for a long time, and then Jarvis contacted me about this, and I talked about you. So this is going to be kind of an interesting chain of influence back to where I got it as well. And I appreciate you looking to reconnect with me, and sort of and just, I don't know, making me aware of this in your life, because I think you could have done this project and not thought enough to look back and kind of connect and understand. But I just want you to know it means the world to me that that you had this experience in my class, but also that you're continuing. I'm so proud of how you've just continued to make this a way of highlighting other people's stories and looking into your own experiences through it. And I just it's something that I will never forget. I'll never forget you. I'll never forget this experience. And it's just as I've gotten older now, 14 years later, from that original experience, my perspective has changed on life. I have 4 kids, and I'm no longer sort of the new kid on the block at school, and I see things through my kids' eyes now, and just the way that I hope for them to kind of see things as the way that I saw you as a student, as someone that just loves being creative and loves like kind of sharing your opinion about stuff, and it's just outgoing, and would take time out of their day years and years and years later to contact one of their teachers to let them know that they made an impact on them, because in life, I feel like that's just the most important thing. It's not where the comma goes, but it's those experiences that we have that we're able to reach back and let people know that they matter to them. And so I can't thank you enough.